What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, the long-awaited release for Knight Silksong was finally here, and it came out in force. So much so that many of these storefronts online were crashing, massive concurrent player count numbers were getting thrown around, and Team Cherry was just sitting back and watching the chaos, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Valve, as a new trademark has people once again talking about the idea of a new game console, or maybe a VR headset. And Mindseye, when it launched, was a disaster. And now we have the publisher on record in an interview wondering, man, what's even the point anymore with all of this? But we'll go over that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with 2K and basketball, as NBA 2K26 is here. People are talking about that. Turns out NBA or 2K has bigger plans even than just that. We can see this posted. This is over on their official account saying, yes, it's true. We're working on a college basketball experience that will feature more than 100 programs from across the country, from powerhouses to Cinderella stories. More good news, you won't have to wait long to start seeing your favorite colleges show up in game. We've got big plans for 2027 and beyond, and even a few surprises coming in early 2026. Which makes me wonder if they have plans to integrate some of that a bit earlier, say in the latest NBA 2K26 game. Otherwise, though, I guess 2027 is when we should look for their like first, or their return to college basketball, since I believe the last one that 2K did was College Hoops 2K8, if I'm not mistaken. We had NCAA basketball from EA go on like another year or two after that. But EA, while they were going to make college basketball games, seemed to have pulled back on that, and now 2K is going to take the reins, and they'll be making the college basketball game, which makes sense for them, because they'll tie it into their NBA 2K, I'm sure, where you can start out in college and then work your way up, transfer over to like the new NBA 2K game, and they can, I'm sure, continue the microtransactions spreading across the whole thing. But you'll have to look out for that here in a couple of years. I know there are a lot of college basketball fans out there, especially when it comes to the games. Much like we saw with the return of college football, I feel like college hoops should be pretty big as well. Also, the Game Boy Advance application for NSO did see an update, and with that, there were some pretty big features that were added. For example, 1080p support, which would be, in that case, in handheld mode for the Switch 2. Also, button remapping was a big one as well. And there was a pretty cool Easter egg that was thrown in there. I did a short on it just to quickly show it off. It's similar to the GameCube, where you hold the stick one way, and then in this case, you get a Game Boy Advance, the whole animation for it starting up. So pretty cool stuff there. It's just, they also changed the banner of it to more fall in line with how they are now branding a lot of their NSO stuff after the Switch 2 release. So it just kind of fits in nicely there. But if you haven't updated yet, go ahead and make sure you try to open your Game Boy Advance application, and it should hit you with that update so you can get 1080p resolution with your Switch 2 in handheld mode. Oh, and we have Ghost of Yotei coming out next month, and it seems that Sony is wasting no time getting review codes out there. Jeff Keighley posted this on his official account, where he says, just received a copy of Ghost of Yotei for review. Global review embargo is Thursday, September 25th, 9 a.m. Eastern. So they are sending these out well in advance, 3 weeks in advance, to make sure people have plenty of time to go through what I assume is going to be a very big open world game, much like Ghost of Tsushima, and people have a chance to put all their thoughts down into videos or articles and write-ups. So it is good to see that we have this game already getting out there, and even the review embargo lifting, a week before it comes out, seems to show a lot of confidence, I'll say, from Sony, whereas we'll hear about red flags of no review codes or review codes going out a day or two before. Here, Sony clearly wants people to spend their time with the game, take their time, and then put out a good or high quality review, I'll say, for a game that I feel like they think is going to review very highly, that coming out at the beginning of October. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Knight Silksong, which released yesterday. I was right around, there were a couple announcements for it. I saw one at 10 a.m. I saw one at 11 a.m. These are Eastern Standard Times, where different companies like Nintendo or PlayStation or GOG were just announcing that the game was available. And when I went to a couple stores, so I started by checking out, because I saw it first, the PlayStation store. I was like, okay, well, here it is up on PlayStation, let's see. And it just wasn't working. It came up like a 404 error or something, and it's like Astro with the headset on, like, oh, we don't know what happened, we're sorry. It's like, that's strange, okay. And then I went over to Nintendo, the eShop that was messed up. There was no page there for it when you landed. It's just an error code. What's going on here with Hollow Knight Silksong? So then I go over to Steam, and that's messed up. Turns out, it seemed like all these storefronts were getting hit with so much traffic that they couldn't keep up. The one that seemed to be fine was on the Xbox, so I have Game Pass, and Hollow Knight Silksong went into Game Pass day one. That seemed a bit more prepared for it because I was able to start downloading right then and there without any issues. I did want to check it out on the Switch too, because that was going to have the 120 hertz mode in handheld mode specifically to see how that looked and everything on the screen. But also, I've accumulated so many credits now with PlayStation through Stars. When they shut that down, it's like, I'll just start dropping these credits in to these coins to then change it out for coupons or like adding it to your wallet. So I have a bunch there. I thought about it. I was like, maybe I'll get on PlayStation as well and see how the trophies are there. But I was just trying to, at that point, find the game in general. Now it took a couple of hours, and then it started popping up on the eShop and PlayStation. While they were a little behind, eventually they had the buy button go live in the mobile app, at which point you were able to buy it and then send it to your PlayStation and start downloading. Still though, when the dust settled here and it was available easier for people to buy, you started to see numbers like these pop up, like SteamDB. Guys, we're talking 535,213 peak concurrent players for Hollow Knight. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I want to just point out that this launched on Thursday, right? So we're not even to the weekend. Like, we may see a higher number over on the weekend for this game on places like Steam. And then you can also kind of think about it a bit more. It's like, okay, well, this game also came out on the Switch 1. We see it on the Switch 2, sure. But like, think about how many people are on the Switch 1. How many people are on the PlayStation? Throw the Xbox in there. With Game Pass, all of a sudden it's like, man, how many people showed up at launch for some of these platforms that typically can be strained a bit, but like to break in that regard is, that's not common, people. So I'm thinking this game did some numbers. And, you know, it is crazy to think if you're Team Cherry, not many people, 3 people or so, to sit back and know that you're about to hit a button that is then going to just bring in tens of millions of dollars in probably a matter of hours, certainly in the first 24 hours, tens of millions of dollars just flying in is, I mean, that's crazy to think about that. But it also does show, I will say, for the gaming industry out there, this game is priced at $20. Many people are looking at that as very fair. It's also just a complete game that they're putting out there, and it just seems like something they wanted to personally make. So they do seem a bit more aligned with gamers in that regard. And the fact that I know the whole review thing was weird. They didn't want to send out codes, and that was for review, right? To have reviews ready. Didn't seem like they needed it, and maybe they knew that, and they thought, you know what, we want to make sure the backers get it. Okay, I get all of that too. This just shows, though, that for the budgets that get thrown around, for the amount of money that attempts to get extracted with $100-some-odd editions nowadays for early access, and then here comes Hollow Knight Silksong with a $20 release, and most likely, I'm going to tell you, we're going to hear millions and millions of copies immediately for this game. And as I mentioned, I had played a first couple of hours for the game, still very early on, but I am liking what I'm seeing so far. It's very much Hollow Knight as I expected. So it is a continuation. It's more Hollow Knight. Great. But there is something else to this to where that, like, it is Metroidvania, and I'm going through, I'm getting more abilities. I've beaten a few bosses already, but there is something about this that just feels bigger than Hollow Knight. That's the idea. They have mentioned themselves, Team Cherry. It's like 40-some-odd bosses in the game, and they've been working on it for 6 or 7 years now. So it should be, but it already off the bat does just feel like a bigger, high quality game. And I'm getting a kick out of it so far. It is difficult. I will say that earlier on than it was with Hollow Knight, but it is, I think, that sense of, yeah, you're familiar most likely with Hollow Knight, so we're not going to necessarily put all the training wheels on you. Just good luck. And I'm fine with that too. So I'm going to keep playing it. I like the atmosphere. I think it's really interesting, and it definitely sucks you in to this world that they've built here. So I feel like I've got a lot still in front of me if Hollow Knight was any indication as to how much you can get out of this. Next up, let's talk about Valve and a new trademark that was spotted that has people talking about hardware with the console that was brought up before. That was Fremont. Remember, that was spotted, and we talked about it here, where it seemed like Valve was doing some testing in the background with benchmarks, and were able to pull some of the specifications for it. Seemed like something they were setting up as a small PC in a box, but would be on the more affordable side. Now, however, this has popped up, and this is Steam Frame. So this is a trademark that people spotted, and it says its registration is intended to cover the categories of computer hardware, computer networking hardware, computer peripherals, computer hardware, and computer software for the reproduction, processing, and streaming of audio, video, data, text, and multimedia content. Now, there's 2 trademarks currently, and the thing with this, I saw Steam Frame. That's actually a pretty cool name, I will say that, but people noticed right away, hold on a minute, someone a day before this was noticed over on the Steam Deck subreddit asked the question, is Steam Frame a good name as opposed to Steam Deck? For example, the name of a new hardware. That exploded online when people looked back and realized, hold on, did someone know about this? Is this a person at Valve just asking, hey, what do you guys think about Steam Frames? An anonymous user will say on Reddit. Maybe just trying to get some market research there on the ground level. Anyway, Steam Frame, what could that be? Well, Brad, we can see here over on Twitter X, says after data mining tonight's huge Steam VR beta, which should go out around the same time, I can confirm that Valve is definitely rebranding Steam VR overlays to frames. Therefore, if Deckard's product name is the Steam Frame, you should now understand what its major selling point is going to be: spatial gaming. So, this, I don't know. I don't know if this may be disappointing to many people, I guess, depending on where you are with VR. Most likely Steam Frame, how it's being aligned currently with some of the data mining, it's their Deckard, or what's kind of like project or codename Deckard for Valve, which is going to be their successor to the Index, but Deckard would be this all-in-one device. So the intriguing thing to me isn't even the VR headset, it's the idea that it's running on ARM and that they would need some kind of translation layer, say for Proton, to then run on ARM, and that could open the doors to all kinds of interesting stuff when it comes to hardware. So one of the reasons I'm not as intrigued with Deckard is because the rumored price for it is north of $1,000, and while it's cool that it's all-in-one and the idea would be, hey, this is going to be an enthusiast device, I'm more interested in the idea of a console that would be on the affordable side, that would run their Steam OS, and maybe it's $400, $500, sits in the living room, and you have a controller for it. Well, with this, it seemed like peripherals were also being noticed and mentioned here, and that Steam controller, the second one, the follow-up to it, was also shown. So I think that would most likely be paired with their console that is still in the works with Fremont. My question is, since this trademark has now been spotted, are we that close to Valve maybe doing a big reveal for Deckard, and then alongside of that, their Steam console, maybe in the same week, all at once? They can say, hey, here's a whole host of different pieces of hardware that we're working on. Here's our roadmap and our plans for its release. So get ready for a bunch of Steam Frame and Steam boxes and all kinds of stuff. And we'll tie it all together with Steam OS. And it also does now work with ARM, so get ready for a bunch of devices there as well. Steam has a lot going for it right now with Valve, and it seems like them using hardware to try to get to more and more people would be the correct avenue. Except for maybe a $1,200 to $1,300 VR headset. I just don't know how big that audience necessarily is. But hey, if you're interested in Deckard, let me know down below if you're excited to see this, and then how it was immediately tied to their big new all-in-one VR headset. Next up, let's talk about Mindseye, which wasn't great when it came out. Still not good now, even after some patches. Well, with that, there was a publisher for it, which is kind of a shame because IO Interactive did their own new publishing arm, and the first game they decided to do was indeed Mindseye, and a lot of that had to do with Leslie Benzies and like the whole Rockstar lineage to that, and like, oh, okay, this should be a slam dunk. And then it released, and it wasn't great. The preview events I mentioned before were questionable at best. Well, there is a new interview now with IGN, and the CEO at IO Interactive, we can see this on their website. Now, real quick, this is from IO Interactive CEO Hakan Abrik, who says, we thought they had some great ideas and a great world in the background that they were building, and hopefully they'll get the opportunity to show more of that in the future, and we just wanted to help them distribute the game, that referring to Mindseye and Build a Rocket Boy. Well, that was definitely tough, right? It was a tough reception. It wasn't what they hoped for, and also what we didn't hope for at IO Interactive Partners. They're working hard on turning that around to regain the trust of the gamers out there, and they have tons of potential and content they're working on, so hopefully they'll succeed with that in the future. So IO Interactive will publish our own games internally. IOI Partners, that remains to be seen. Wow. That just like destroyed all confidence in the ability, I guess, to choose the right game, and that is a big thing. You have to be able to recognize which games to back and which games to pass on, much like acquisitions with these different companies. As we've seen, Sony, for example, they've been missing on many of their acquisitions, whether it's having to now absorb Bungie or close down Firewalk. Here, though, yeah, you got to figure out which games to sign on for publishing, because it's not cheap, first of all, to publish, but also you keep signing on Mindseye-like games and releases, and those keep getting attached to your brand. You might have some games even just avoid you. So it is crazy to see them go, I don't know. Mindseye did some damage. So right now they are publishing 007, that's their own game internally, and maybe that's the big thing now. They have to have more of a hand in some of these releases that they do want to publish from external partners, and it seems like they're more comfortable keeping things internal for now. So we'll see if they pop up on anything external in the future. At least for now, though, they're looking towards 007 and crossing their fingers and hoping that Mindseye can somehow, some way, come back from the dead, but I just think that the name, the game itself was completely tainted, and they should probably move on to something new. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts for last week. This will be covering all the physical games that were sold in Japan, and it gives us our first look at Metal Gear Solid Delta. We can see this, though, over on Install Base Forum, with Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater out of the gate at the top, 63,585 copies. It's not common to see a PlayStation 5 game top the charts in Japan. So, hey, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater in Japan with a PS5 install size that's just below 7 million systems. These are all physical copies as well, so you take some digital into account there. I think that's about right for what Konami was expecting for a remake for a Metal Gear Solid game, especially one like that has that kind of a lineage to it. Very, very good Metal Gear Solid game with 3. Super Robot Wars Y was number 2 on the Switch 1, 60,532 copies. Story of Seasons, following that up, Grand Bazaar, 46,586 copies. Mario Kart World is at number 4, dropped down from 1. That should include the bundles there, 35,185. Then Super Robot Wars Y on the PS5, Story of Seasons on the Switch 2, Kirby and the Forgotten Land on the Switch. That was 12,174. These expansion pack, like combination of physical, I don't know if they're doing what Nintendo was thinking they would, because that's not a great opening for something like that, but Donkey Kong Bonanza then at 8, that's 10,440. That's coming up on 300,000 physical copies sold there. Lost Soul Aside on the PS5, 7,374. And then Minecraft rounding out the top 10. Moving over to the hardware, the Switch 2 at 41,957 systems. Hard to say where they are with stock right now. I don't live in Japan. You can only go off what people are saying, say online or just different anecdotal accounts there. And it seems that in general, the Switch 2 is just hard to find, and it's selling out most retailers. The Switch 1, though, that crossed back over 20,000 units sold in Japan for the week, which is, it's crazy to see that still running strong. The PS5, 8,304, the Xbox Series, 389, and the PS4, somehow they found 16 more systems in the back. So I think a decent enough opening for Metal Gear Solid Delta. Konami has mentioned that they have some younger developers that they are sort of working with here alongside of this release. It seems like in an attempt to make another Metal Gear Solid game. And the nice thing about this is they have some runway with these remakes if they want. So they could do Delta, they could do Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2. I guess go to 4 then if they want to remake it. I don't know, that seems like that's going to take quite a while. And if they do really want to take a shot at a Metal Gear Solid 6, it seems like they might remake maybe the first one here soon and then jump right to 6 right off the bat. But hey, we'll see what plans are there. At least it seems like Japan hasn't forgotten about Metal Gear as it did pretty well. Otherwise, though, the Switch 2, I think that is mostly supply constraint, and we'll know, especially as we head towards the holidays and what I assume to be much larger supply allocations towards Japan, as Nintendo seems like almost desperate to try to get more and more units out there, especially since they do sell a Switch 2 system out there that is cheaper than anywhere else in the world, as it is region locked to Japan, so that they can provide an affordable option to what is, their biggest market next to the US. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you used a VR headset this year? Okay, 3/4 of the people said no, but look at that. 26% say yes. Okay. Someone I see says No Man's Sky in VR is one of the best ways to experience the game. If anyone hasn't, some are saying they play mini golf with some of the friends from work each Thursday. The Quest 2 for the occasional game of Beat Saber. That's a good one there. Quest 3 on the daily. Okay, so there are people out there who, yes, are playing VR consistently still, and I haven't heard as much discussion around VR in general, other than we had the Batman stuff where there's a sequel for Arkham Shadow, which is cool, but I'm just curious about the reception for Valve with this pretty expensive all-in-one headset and how that'll go over for them. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Timmy, who says the PS5 is backwards compatible to the PS4. It's entirely possible that people are moving more digital with their game purchases than before, but still wanted a disc drive to play the games they already own. And yeah, that's a fair point. That's one of the reasons I wanted the disc drive units, because I did also want to buy physical PS5 games, but also just a wall of PS4 titles. Like, well, if I get the digital edition of the PS5, then I'm not going to use any of these games. And then the backwards compatibility, there's interest there to see maybe how the PS5 will deal with PS4 games and will they run better. And so, like, there are a lot of question marks there too, but just having that sort of a library day one for the system, I mean, you may as well. Also, Blu-ray playback, like, there are a lot of things that definitely go into that. And I'm more curious about how Sony deals with things going to the PS6, as they've already figured out how to remove the disc drive. So will that just be completely optional on release, and they'll just have one like main PS6 unit that's just a digital edition similar to the PS5 Pro, and then if you want that disc-based option, you're gonna have to pay $80 to $100 extra and buy it separately. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you did want to see how things turned out for Lost Soul Aside. I did an entire first hour playthrough of it and posted it on the channel, and I'll leave that video right below it. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.